One of the reasons why I originally tried to connect with Lawrence, like when you first came to the States, was because he was working on a project at the time, and I don't know if you can fully talk about the baseball one.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
Okay. So the work that he was doing, although it wasn't with a lens of diversity, equity, and inclusion, the thing that I was really latched onto, and I'll let you tell more about it because obviously I can't speak to the depth that you can about it, but it created accessibility in a way that I had never even heard of before. And it created an awareness that I thought was so powerful. Again, I'll let you tell more about that, but because of what you wanted to accomplish, I was like, oh my gosh, you two need to know each other, because even though you do different work, you do similar things and you have a similar mission. So if you'll tell us a little bit more, even just about that baseball experience, that would be incredible.
So the one that you're referring to is a VR case. And so I work with people in forensics and also medical, and we also deal with litigation and lawyers. There was a boy who was injured and he started to lose his vision. We wanted to demonstrate through the use of VR what he was actually seeing at the time, because no one could really tell like the amount of loss. So we pulled on past experiences. We took a baseball stadium, something that he used to go to with his brother, and we showed what it used to look like. And then through a series of tests with his doctors, we were able to do studies on what he could actually see afterwards, and then input that in VR. It was really powerful, because his parents actually even said when they tried it, they're like, we never could understand what he could see now.
Wow.
And, and they were left in tears.
That's life-changing.
Yeah. So of course the case settled because of that. Actually the whole courtroom was in tears because of that, being able to actually experience what he was experiencing. So yeah, it's very powerful, very, very powerful mediums that are coming up in technology. So yeah.
Yeah, this is really interesting. I think I'm really fascinated. Is this in like the metaverse, or is it just the program is specifically?
So it's a program that we built for use with a VR headset.
Okay. Is it? I'm very also curious. Is it like not only with the headset, but do you also have kind of like the hand?
Yeah, there are controls to navigate
that.
Through there. Different, like there was a couple different experiences through that.
So you're kind of just creating that new environment from scratch, or from an existing like.
Yeah, for that one, we had to create all the assets from scratch and then work with everyone to get it all in there. So.
That's really cool. I think technology is in various forms is adapting and changing with us, and so I would love to hear you out. What do you think the next steps for, like, if you could build out the project, no requirements, no worries about legal and compliance to listen to, what would you do next?
I mean, there's some dream scenarios, and we were talking about this a little bit last night, but the technology really isn't there yet. But if given the opportunity, I'm a visual storyteller. I would love this technology to just be seamless to where we can tell our stories and share our stories in ways that's accessible for people. And that's a big thing that we need to think about now is and being able to empower everyone to be able to tell the right stories. So I would love a way that was seamless to tell these stories and share. Right now it's a little cumbersome, and the hardware and software just isn't even there yet. So the project we were talking about, actually, it was a long endeavor. It was months and months of work. Other projects are years and years in the making. So we're quite a ways out, probably good 5-10 years out from a lot of revolutionary change, but it's coming. It's coming.
When you hear that and you think about your past work, if you're open to talking about some of your background, like how would that have impacted some of your like early work?
Oh yeah, immensely. So I'm a marriage and family therapist by training, relationship coach now. But the implications of something like that to allow a family member the opportunity to actually see and witness what the suffering was of a loved one in such a real time sort of experience would create such a deeper level of understanding that would allow the parents of maybe a child or something like that, we'll just use children as an example, the knowledge to help find better resources for their children or for people that they love. And I think that, you know, majority of people who end up in therapy or anything like that, the disconnect is that this person has a problem. I don't understand the problem, you need to fix it. And so I get tasked with like being the fixer of something that is actually a systemic problem, you know, because if you don't understand what your loved one is suffering from or going through, then you don't necessarily make accommodations for it, or you just, there's empathy. I wouldn't even say it's empathy, it's probably sympathy. You know, like, oh, I'm sorry you're going through that. There's no real true understanding. So to have some sort of technology that allows a family member or loved one to really sit in the shoes of someone who's suffering that they care about would just change the world, if I'm honest. Like, I mean, I'm really fascinated to hear more.
I know.
Tell me more.
I wish more people had access to that software. Actually, so I think most of you all know I had an eye surgery in 2020 that like totally changed my vision and my processing and everything like that. And I kept thinking back to that case and I was like, I really wish that I could help people see what I see or like go through the experience that I'm going through, because I can't verbalize my experience. Yeah. All I know is that I can't engage in the world in the same way I used to. But I mean, I just think that's so powerful and needed. And then I think a little bit more too about what you're doing, Raquel, as well, working in high schools. Like, how does this all come in and impact you in any way, or what are your reactions?
Yeah. So I work with a population of students that it's a mix. We're starting to get more middle-class families, but a lot of the students that I serve are students that get free and reduced lunch. They are in group homes. They live below poverty lines. They've gone through traumas. And on top of that, they also have learning disabilities. So there's a mix of different things that, like you were saying, systemically also hold them back from being able to take a step forward. So I think how your software would be in the school setting, you know, thinking to the students that go through so much trauma and can't even describe the pain that they're feeling, how that could help a counselor, the school psychologist, to just help them and see where they're at and be able to provide the adequate support for that. Or even thinking about a student, like how it could even trickle down to like how a teacher even gives their lesson or provides their content for students who need those learning accommodations. So I want to hear more about what you do, because I think it's so cool, and I think that that's what the issue is with education, is we're so I feel like we're a bit outdated with the way that we serve our kids, especially like our neurodivergent kids. That just their brain just works in a totally different way. So like, what would it look like if we gave them something like this to be able to learn the way that they learn best, or be able to convey feelings that they have in ways that, you know, they can't. So yeah, all that to say, I love what you're doing.
Like, do you see these dynamics changing as there are younger generations coming up, or do you feel like, and you might, I don't know, you might not even witness this piece of it, but like, do you feel like people express themselves differently or share more of these stories, or can you see people falling through the crack, like maybe Dédé like wasn't included and fully embraced?
Yeah, I definitely think that Gen Zers and like teens in today's culture, the teens that I serve, they're a whole other breed. They're definitely a lot more open-minded. They assert themselves a lot more. However, I also still very much see, and this could also be because of the population I serve, right, where it's a predominantly Black population, underserved. I also see how they fall through the cracks. I had a student one year, she's Latina. She killed herself. And I remember the last day I saw her, she had her head down in my class. And she typically would have her head down, but she was in my first period class. My first period class starts at 7:30. So typically it's typical for students in first period to want to have their heads down because you're tired. And I remember she had her head down that day, and I remember thinking to myself, all right, she's probably just tired. And the next day I get an email that she killed herself. And I remember thinking back to that moment when I looked at her. And had I just had a little more curiosity, had I maybe taken some time out to just pose some questions and just really check in, I don't know if she would still be here, but maybe she would have felt seen or heard. I think after that experience, I think is when I started to shift in the way that I navigate my dynamics with my students, in asking more curious questions with them, and shifting the environment in my classroom in that they feel safe to be vulnerable with me. I think it was after that scenario with my student where I started at the very beginning of the year, started not only doing all about me PowerPoint so that they feel comfortable with me, but also just establishing my space in my classroom as a safe space. Like, you can talk to me, even if you think that I may not understand, even if it's just you sitting next to me crying, however it is that you want to try to convey a message to me, like, this is your space to do it. And so I think that because of that, I've had recently, these past few years, a lot more students just come to me and share with me really vulnerable things, share with me things that you look at them and you wouldn't think that they're going through that because they're putting a face on in school, you know, and trying to be strong. But it's really given me the opportunity to, dig deep and see a part of themselves that other educators at my school probably don't. So I hope that answers your question.
I think I just want to acknowledge, because I understand the weight of feeling like your non-action could have impacted the situation, and because you're a believer of the universe and all things love and all the things, like, you did everything you could in that moment to the best of your ability. And I hope that, like, even though it may cause you pain or you may see it a certain way, because I felt that I saw, like, some emotion coming when you're like, you took a breath before you even shared. And I even, like, started to almost tear up because I was like, I know exactly what you've experienced there. But you did the best that you could at that moment. And I think what's so beautiful about your testimony is that you, unlike some other people, have used it to create change within the way that you engage. And, that's all that soul healing, girl. Like, you know what I mean? And I love the fact that Dédé, like, helped you see or gave you this perspective that, like, you're doing that now.
Yeah.
You know, it never wasn't going on. It's a part of who you are, so you can't not do it.
Yeah.
You know, and you are a soul healer. So, yeah, thank you for sharing. I totally understand. I resonate. I had when I was a senior in high school, my fish, when you chose, like, a freshman to, like, be the little mentor or whatever, and I freaking loved her. Her name was Brandy, and I still think about her today, and it makes me teary-eyed. But when you said that, when you told me that she took her life, I immediately thought of her because she did, and I just didn't know. Oh my God, I'm going to start crying. I always cry for her. I just wish I would have done more. But I also acknowledge that, like, I did the best that I could with what I had at that time, because I was also suffering, in my toxic family. And it's hard when life is lost that you wish that you could have prevented. But I think you're actually preventing so many other lives being lost just by your presence. And that is also what matters.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Like, right after it happened, I went home that day, and I remember feeling guilty, right? That guilt of, like, I could have done more, I should have done more. And I remember I took a nap, and she showed up in my dream. Oh. And I don't even know where we were. I was just, all I remember from the dream is that we weren't here on Earth. It was like I was seeing her on the other side. And it was like she was in a waiting room, waiting to go into some other place, right? But the waiting room was just all glass, and it was all white. And I just see her knocking from the other side and waving at me. And it was this kind, like, it was almost as if it was that wave and that smile of, like, you didn't do anything wrong. I I'm here on the other side, and that's okay, you know. And I think when I woke up from that dream, that for me was like, it was that release of the weight of like, okay, it's not my fault. Like, she was going through whatever it is that she was going through, and she felt like this was her only out. But I can use it to better my practices with building relationship with my students moving forward. So yeah, I'm glad that I had that experience, because I was able to release that weight. Because I think it can easily go to a place of like guilt.
Definitely.
My brother attempted to take his life in 2012, I think it was, and he tried more than once. And one of the things, like, as I'm listening to you all talk about like that feeling of like guilt and acceptance and like love and knowing that you only did as good as you could, I think it's taken me a decade to understand that, like, because I wonder, you know, he's here, right? I'm so fortunate to have my brother still on this earth. But there's so often that I will think about it and revisit those feelings. And I think that, like, for a long time, I also felt that guilt of, why couldn't we have protected him? Why couldn't we have loved him more? Why can't he see like how much we care about him? And I'm grateful that over the years, he's opened up to really share his experience and share like how he was feeling and why he attempted and why he struggled for the last decade, how he got that far. And I think it's helped me to understand that sometimes, like, when someone's hurting, even though we can look at it and go, oh, we should be reflective, and we should say we should all be more thoughtful and caring and love other people and wonder what's like taking them to wherever they are in their life in that moment. It's also still their journey that they have to own. Mm-hmm. And should my brother choose, and I pray that this is never a choice that he makes going forward, but should he ever choose to leave, like, that is his choice. Mm-hmm. And I know that's controversial to say that, and I know that that's not everyone's belief, but through the conversations that I've had with him, I'm grateful that he knows how much I love him, and I'm grateful that I know how much he loves me, and I'm grateful that he knows that we think he matters, but I also know that he has suffered. I don't think he suffers like he did, but I think that gave me a whole new perspective on loss and when people don't stay. And I know it's different. I know not every case is the same, and I know that everyone feels differently about it, but I'm just really grateful because it allows me to see, like, I can only show up the best that I can, and I can try every day to do better and be more aware of other people and give space for people and not just shut them out. But I also can't take on their experience and hold myself responsible for that choice. And that's been a real hard one to swallow and to get to, but I just share that because, like, it has been kind of a blessing that I got his perspective through it.
Yeah. I feel like as a fixer or like a healer, like, you do take on that responsibility. Like, I should have been the one to fix or heal. Mm-hmm. But I just want to defer back to that baseball player example. I'm like, what a powerful technology to be able to sit in some of the, you know, like these people, like the people that we love, my clients, anyone who is suffering even from depression, and to be able to walk through their shoes and how they see and perceive the world, so that way I can navigate supporting them in a different way, you know?
Because, like, words don't always mean the same thing.
No.
Right? Yeah. We're having this beautiful conversation, but we're all going to walk out with a completely different memory of it and different perspective of it, or we've received it differently. And so, like, being able to actually step in someone else's shoes in some way, even then you'll still receive it differently, but you get a little bit closer to building empathy. But I'm grateful that I get to hear these experiences and digest them, and hopefully, like, you all get to, like, hear and digest them and think about, like, how does that impact you in these other relationships as well. My last thing that I want to thank you all for participating in this social experiment. I really do hope that you all found some commonalities between you all, even though there are so many differences at the same time. And I truly hope that you take these relationships that you just formed and deepen them and continue them. Hi, Lia here. Thanks for tuning in to our first film dinner of the Traveling Table Dinner Series, a social experiment to see what happens when we bring together a table of strangers for meaningful conversation and connection. If you're interested in participating, please visit www.andhuman.space/experience and fill out our inquiry form. We hope you'll stay tuned and subscribe. In fact, go click that subscribe button right now so you don't miss the next episode. Our goal is to produce 3 to 4 new episodes each month as we continue to bring more people together to go below the surface and learn how to reconnect in a world where feelings of isolation and disconnection continue to soar. Thank you again, and we'll see you soon.